About undervaluing something or not charging enough for something or even outright saying that it's free depreciates the perceived value of it. Um, I was going to use my time to talk about this book I was reading recently called Sway, The Irresistible Pull of Irrational Behavior. On a side note, it was like less noteworthy, but Nathan's Hot Dogs, when it started out in Coney Island, was selling at half the price of all the other hot dog vendors, and it was for that reason that they attributed the fact that he did like miserable business. No one wanted anything to do with the hot dogs, and then eventually he figured out to pay a number of well dressed doctors and other professionals to eat the hot dogs in public view and to hang out around the stand. And then also there's this other experiment that I'd seen it referred to quite a few times, but where they gave a bunch of college students some Sobe energy drink and told the control group that they're having it for free, told one group that it was average retail price was $2.98, and then yet another one that is 98 cents. And then they had each of the groups take tests and told them that that not only was it an energy drink, that it's supposed to be cognitively enhancing or of some nature. And so the group that thought the drink was worth $2.98 outperformed the group that thought outperformed the control by a decent margin, and by a wide margin outperformed the group that thought it was 98 cents, who performed below the control group. I thought that was pretty pretty fucking interesting. But the other thing in this book, like I've been reading a lot on like just irrationality, probability, randomness, and whatnot. But so I tend to get like a number of books that are on overlap in some way. But the thing that's tripping me out these days is it's called diagnostic bias. And that's basically just making your mind up about someone before you've actually, got to see what they're all about. And I'll just stick to the anecdotes here and let people, you guys can think for yourself how this might apply to workplace dynamic, anything from, applying for jobs, hang out with friends, relations with the opposite sex. So in one experiment, they took another group of college students and they told them that they were going to have a fill-in teacher because their normal professor was going to be out that day, and then they gave two versions of the same bio to everyone in the class, and they only differed in two words, and they're similar insofar as they say this guy is great, he has excellent credentials, he's married, he's a veteran, so on and so forth. But the one difference was that in one version they said people who know him consider him to be a very warm person, industrious, critical, practical, and determined, and in the other version it said people consider him to be a rather cold person, industrious, critical, practical, and determined. And then so they let him teach the course. And at the end of it, they did sort of a follow-up with the students to see what they thought of him, what they thought of the class. And uniformly, everyone who received the version that described him as being very warm said that he was personable, seemed like an excellent guy to hang around with. He was totally competent. And the other group, of course, the trick is he gave the exact same lecture to everyone in the class, and then the other group that was told that he was cold thought that he was just the opposite, that he was arrogant and unsociable, unpopular, self-centered, all that kind of stuff. And then there's a long study with NBA draft picks. And guy, you might be interested in this. I see you tweeting about this all the time. And they found, studying 6 years worth of statistics, that regardless of how well an NBA performer actually played over the years, the amount of time that they weren't on the bench or that they were put on the court never changed, and it matched their initial draft, the assessment of them at the time that they were picked in the draft. And so that's pretty, pretty depressing to think about. And then the last thing, in short, is that they took a number of women, and they described some as being really beautiful, and then the other half as being average. And then they told them that they were going to have a conversation with a stranger, with a male stranger. Didn't tell them anything about the identity of the person that they were going to speak to. However, for the men who called them, they gave them their photograph, and that was it. But what they did is they switched up the photographs, and so that some of the women that were described by the researchers as average, the male callers thought they were talking to the more beautiful women. They recorded the conversations, and as you can imagine, the guys who thought they were talking to the most beautiful women behaved in the way that guys do when they're talking to beautiful women, and then conversely, the women, regardless of their appearance, responded in the way you would expect. But then the next stage of the experiment was to take the audio recording and strip out the male voice and leave it to just the woman, and then expose it to another group of men and have them talk about who they thought was the most attractive, who they thought was, the best along all these different lines that people will gauge their interest in one another. And again, it was the women who had callers who thought they were beautiful, who once again everyone said these are the beautiful ones. And so I don't know. I just
Yeah,
wanted
I
to
mean,
share that because I like it.
people are fucking irrational, and we're just, part of being social is that we really take each other's opinions seriously.
Yeah.
So even if you claim to not value other people's opinions or to be an independent thinker, you're influenced by something, even if it in subtle ways. We're always getting our image of things, products or movies or music or other people from the things that we read or the things that our friends tell us.
And
And
and think of how bad that it can be if you had the wrong person. So say there's a third party that we're about to meet, and Robert, you said that this guy was just a total dipshit, that he was a cretin, and then Jeff said this guy's brilliant, was totally affable. And to think that, we always want to think that we're immune to the sway of the things that research shows us about being human. But I mean,
mhm.
chances are, or like say you're a reader and you're going to encounter Andrew Humphrey at some point, after what we've done to him. Like he
Ramsey.
will forever, Ramses, he will forever be fighting against whatever assumptions people have made about him or whatever conclusions they've drawn based on things that they've heard.
Well, this kind of stuff goes all the way back to what, middle school, earlier, in terms of, some kid saying that the new kid in class is a douche, and then, can you be friends with this guy? Can you see him for what he is, as opposed to what you've heard?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff is classroom hazing. So
Did you? I forgot to bring this up when we were talking about the pool, but there was something I posted the other day where a Chinese study found that when what they did is they took a Chinese group and then a group of white participants and showed them imagery of someone who was being hurt, not gravely injured or anything, but then they had them hook up to fMRIs, I believe, and what they found was that there was a muted brain response to seeing a person of another race uh, being injured or experiencing pain. Um, I just want to get real heavy right now. Think about
what do you
Jesus.
mean? Like if I
well,
watch a
no,
video of some Chinese people getting hurt, I'm not gonna respond the same way if I see a group of white people being hurt. Is that what you're
that's
saying?
what the implications of the study are exactly, and it's a single study, and whether or
I mean,
not I mean,
that might explain why we spent all of last week still talking about Michael Jackson instead of all the crazy shit going on in China. But
but anyway,
yeah.
I think brought that up. The idea that it doesn't necessarily mean there's a neurological component, not a basis, because it doesn't establish chicken or the egg either way, right? I mean, you could form certain opinions in advance, and that's why it's not just that you're predisposed to this, but the fact that there is like a component to it is sort of disturbing to me. And I'd be curious to see if you get the same results if you apply the experiment to people that are speaking other languages, despite being the same ethnicity, or who are, hold different political views or religious views. My
Hmm.
hypothesis would be yes, that you would also have sort of diminished empathy.